Rain poured down on the alien city, turning the neon lights into rivers of color that ran across the streets. The transport station was crowded with beings of every kind: tall insectoids with metal shells, lizard-like merchants shouting prices, and thin, shadowy creatures who kept their eyes hidden. Among them stood an alien elder, his robe soaked through, his long fingers trembling as he searched inside a small pouch. His face showed despair. He held out a few worn coins to the driver of a hovering cab, but the driver spat on the ground and pushed his hand away. "You don't have enough," the driver growled, voice sharp like broken glass. "Out of my way, old one." The elder staggered back, his eyes wide with shame. The crowd around him didn't care. Some even laughed as he pleaded softly for help. His body shook, his thin legs ready to collapse. The transport door closed, the driver's hand already moving to start the engine. From the other side of the station, a human soldier watched. He had arrived only 2 weeks ago, assigned as peacekeeper by the Terran Federation. His uniform was hidden under a dark coat, his eyes scanning the crowd with quiet caution. He had seen many things on alien worlds, but this sight struck him differently, the helplessness of someone too old to fight for himself. The human stepped forward, his boots splashing water. The driver frowned as the stranger raised his hand. Without a word, the human placed a small coin on the machine beside the driver's seat. The coin was gold in color, marked with old Earth symbols. It wasn't normal currency here, but the machine beeped, lights turning green. The fare was paid in full. The driver blinked in confusion but shrugged and allowed the elder to climb in. The old alien's eyes filled with tears as he looked at the human. He bowed low, voice shaking. You don't know what you've done," he whispered. His words were almost lost in the sound of rain and engines. The human gave a simple nod and stepped inside the transport as well. The cab lifted into the air, engines humming as it rose above the crowded street. The city stretched out below them, glowing towers and endless rain falling like silver curtains. For a moment, it felt peaceful. But the elder sat stiff, clutching his robe tightly, his gaze locked on the human. He seemed afraid, as if the simple act of kindness had opened a door that should have stayed closed. His lips trembled, but he said nothing more. The transport curved over a bridge that crossed a dark river, heading toward the outer districts. The driver muttered about the weather, about delays, about nothing important. Then a deep sound rolled across the sky. The cab shook, lights flickered. The driver gasped and pulled hard on the controls. "What is that?" he shouted. Above the clouds, massive shadows appeared. The rain parted around them as 3 alien battleships descended slowly, their size blocking out half the sky. Each ship bristled with weapons, sharp edges glowing with energy. Their hulls carried the insignia of the ruling empire, an empire feared across the galaxy. The transport's alarm began to scream. The driver cursed, panic filling his eyes. Why are they here? They're not supposed to enter the city airspace. The battleships moved with perfect formation, positioning themselves in front of the transport. Their engines roared like thunder, sending shockwaves through the air. On the cabin screen, a signal blinked. A cold metallic voice filled the vehicle. "Surrender the human, now." The elder flinched, grabbing the human's wrist with a grip far stronger than expected. His eyes were wide with terror, and his whole body trembled. He shook his head violently. "Don't move. Don't say a word," he hissed, voice raw with fear. The human frowned. His pulse quickened, but his face stayed calm. He glanced at the elder, then back at the glowing ships outside. The voice repeated, harsher this time. "Surrender the human, or be destroyed." The driver's hands shook on the controls. He looked back at his passengers. "Is this true? They want you?" His voice cracked. "What did you do?" The human didn't answer. He didn't know himself. All he had done was pay for a ride. His mind raced, trying to understand. The elder's grip tightened painfully. His whisper came again, trembling yet certain. "You remind them of someone they fear, someone they thought was gone forever." The battleship's cannons glowed, ready to fire. The transport shook under the force of their energy. The driver panicked and slammed the controls forward. The cab dropped suddenly, racing into the narrow streets below, engines screaming. Blinding beams of energy shot past, exploding against towers and bridges. The whole city lit up with fire and panic. Inside the small cab, the human braced himself as sparks rained from the ceiling. The elder clutched him tightly, whispering prayers in his strange language. Outside, the shadows of the three battleships followed close, blocking every possible escape. The human's jaw tightened as he looked out the window. He didn't know why they wanted him. He didn't know why the elder seemed to understand. But one thing was certain, there was no turning back now. The transport twisted between towers, chased by death itself. The city screamed around them. And through the chaos, the elder's words echoed in the human's mind. "You don't know what you've done." The transport cab plunged through the storm, engines whining as the driver fought to keep control. Neon signs blurred past the windows, explosions flashing in the sky above. The three battleships followed like hunting beasts, their massive cannons charging with a deadly hum. Every time the driver swerved, a beam of energy tore through the air, shattering rooftops and shaking the ground below. The human kept one hand on the wall of the cab, his body steady, even as the vehicle jerked violently. His eyes never left the sky. His soldier's instincts told him they weren't going to let him escape. He felt the elder's trembling grip on his sleeve, the old alien's breath uneven and fast. "They know," the elder whispered, voice weak but urgent. "They know who you are now." The human frowned. "I don't even know who I am to them," he said calmly, though his heart pounded. The driver shouted over the alarms. "I can't keep this up. They'll blast us into dust." His hands shook as he pulled the cab into a narrow underpass. The sound of collapsing metal followed behind as energy beams ripped through the concrete. For a few moments, the tunnel shielded them from the battleships. The cab's lights flickered, sparks dancing across the dashboard. The human leaned closer to the elder. "Tell me why they're after me." The elder's eyes darted to the floor. His hands clutched his robe tighter. "Not here," he muttered. "Walls have ears. Machines listen. If you know now, they'll know you know." His voice dropped to a whisper. "But remember, your face, your actions, you are not a stranger to them." Before the human could press further, the tunnel shook violently. A piercing beam of light stabbed down from above, tearing the ceiling apart. The battleships had tracked them even here. Dust and debris rained into the cab, forcing the driver to push the craft harder. "They'll bury us alive," the driver cried out. He yanked the controls, sending the cab upward through a broken shaft into the open city once more. As soon as they rose into the night air, a warning siren blared. The lead battleship's voice returned, echoing through every speaker in the district. "Surrender the human. This is your final chance." All across the city, citizens froze in fear. Crowds scattered into alleys. Market stalls collapsed as people fled. Mothers shielded their children. Merchants abandoned their goods. The Empire's words were law, and its battleships were death from the sky. No one would stand against them. Inside the cab, the driver's face was pale. Sweat dripped down his forehead. His eyes shifted nervously toward the human. Maybe I should give you to them," he whispered, his voice cracking. "It's you they want, not me." The elder hissed sharply. "Don't even think it." His frail hands balled into fists. "You hand him over, you doom us all." The human stayed silent, his gaze locked on the ships above. Slowly, he turned to the driver. His voice was steady, calm, but carried a steel edge. "If you give me up, they won't spare you either. You've already seen too much. They'll burn this whole block to hide the truth." The driver's eyes widened as fear replaced doubt. His hands tightened on the controls. "Then what do we do?" The human scanned the glowing skyline. He spotted a network of old industrial pipes stretching across the city's east sector. They looked unstable, half abandoned, but large enough to hide inside. He leaned forward. "Head for those pipes. Lose them in the smoke." The driver didn't argue. He swerved hard, diving into the industrial zone. The air filled with smog, thick and choking, as towers of rusted machinery loomed above them. The cab dipped low, weaving through the metal jungle. Behind them, the battleships fired relentlessly, but their heavy size made it difficult to follow into the narrow spaces. Explosions tore apart smokestacks, flames rising high. The human held on tightly, his eyes scanning for an escape route. The elder, still trembling, leaned close to him. "You don't understand, human. Your kindness paying for me, it wasn't small. That coin you used, it's forbidden. Only the old houses remember it. To the Empire, it means rebellion. And now, they think you are the spark." The human's jaw tightened. His single act of helping had turned into something far greater. He thought about the elder's words. A spark. He wasn't looking to start anything, yet destiny seemed to have other plans. The cab shot through a collapsing refinery pipe, fire trailing behind them. The driver screamed as another beam scorched the air, barely missing their tail. The human reached forward, grabbing the controls with one hand to steady the vehicle. His voice cut through the panic. "Keep going. Don't stop. They'll fall before we do." The elder looked at him, shocked by the fire in his eyes. This was not just a soldier. This was something else. Someone who did not fear the Empire's shadow. Above them, the battleships adjusted formation, breaking apart to circle the district. Their engines roared, hunting from every angle. The city trembled under their presence. The human braced himself as the cab plunged into darkness once more. Somewhere behind, the sound of engines grew louder, closer. They weren't safe yet. The elder leaned close, whispering into his ear with a voice full of dread and certainty. "You remind them of someone they fear, someone they thought dead. That is why they will never stop." The human stared forward into the night, his mind racing. The chase was far from over, and the truth was only beginning to unfold. The transport finally slowed after racing for what felt like hours. The driver's arms shook from gripping the controls too tightly, and sweat dripped from his forehead. Smoke still trailed behind the cab as it slid into a half-collapsed tunnel deep beneath the city. The air smelled of rust, mold, and damp stone. The driver cut the engine, and silence fell, broken only by the elder's heavy breathing. The human kept his eyes on the entrance behind them, watching for the glow of pursuing ships. Nothing yet. For the first time since the chase began, there was stillness. But that stillness carried tension, like the pause before a storm. The elder leaned against the cracked wall of the tunnel. His robe was torn, his thin chest rising and falling quickly, yet his eyes burned with something sharp, almost alive again. He turned to the human with trembling hands. "You don't understand the danger you brought upon yourself," he said softly. The human knelt in front of him. His voice was calm, steady. "Then make me understand. What do they want from me? Why would battleships chase one man who only paid for a ride?" The elder's gaze dropped to the coin still clutched in the human's palm. Its surface glowed faintly in the dim light, symbols etched deep into the metal. The old alien pointed at it, his voice almost reverent. "That is no ordinary coin. That is a relic, a mark of the lost war. It should not exist anymore." The human frowned, turning the coin over between his fingers. "It's just a piece of metal. I carried it from Earth. My grandfather gave it to me." The elder's eyes widened in shock. "Earth? So it is true. Humanity still remembers. Do you know what that coin means? To the Empire, it is forbidden. It is the emblem of rebellion, of a time when humans stood against them. They thought all such things destroyed." The driver, who had been sitting quietly, muttered nervously. "I don't want to hear this. If the Empire even suspects I know these words, I'll be killed. We should throw it away, burn it, forget it exists." The elder shook his head violently. "No, you cannot destroy it. That coin is more than metal. It is a key, a memory carved into matter. It tells every species that humanity once stood proud that they were never truly broken." The human's hand closed around it. His chest felt heavy. He remembered the stories his grandfather told him at night. Stories of old battles, of sacrifices, of enemies too powerful to fight yet fought anyway. He had never believed them fully. But now, hearing the elder's words, he began to wonder if those stories were more than myths. The tunnel shook suddenly, dust falling from the ceiling. The driver jumped in fear. "They're searching," he hissed. "We can't stay here." The elder grabbed the human's arm before he could move. His voice was urgent now. "Listen to me. The Empire doesn't fear your strength. They don't fear your weapons. They fear your spirit. The moment you helped me, the moment you used that coin, you reminded them of something they buried long ago. They fear that spark. That is why they will never stop chasing you." The human stared at him, trying to piece together the weight of those words. "But I'm only one man. What can I do against battleships, against an empire?" The elder smiled sadly, his wrinkled face softening. "One man cannot win a war, but one man can start it. One act can change the course of many lives. You don't see it yet, but to them, you are not just a soldier. You are a symbol, the kind that lights fires." The driver hissed again, pressing his ear to the wall. "They're coming. Soldiers. I hear their boots." His voice cracked with panic. The human stood, gripping the coin tightly, his other hand reaching for the strange alien rifle he had picked up in the chaos earlier. The weapon felt heavy, unbalanced, but his body adjusted as if instinct guided him. The elder struggled to rise, his body weak. You must protect it. Even if you fall, protect the coin. Humanity's time is not over. The human glanced toward the tunnel's entrance, where faint lights flickered closer. Shadows moved against the walls, growing larger with each second. His heart pounded, not from fear but from certainty. He knew there would be no turning back. The driver backed away into the cab, shaking his head. We're doomed. We can't fight them. Not soldiers. Not here. The human ignored him. He positioned himself between the elder and the approaching lights, raising the alien rifle. His face was calm, but his eyes burned with the same fire his grandfather once carried. The elder whispered from behind, his voice trembling with both fear and hope. You carry the spark, human. That is why they fear you. Boots struck the ground in rhythm. The tunnel filled with harsh voices, ordering the intruders to surrender. Beams of light cut through the dark. The human tightened his grip on the rifle. The coin pressed cold against his palm. But in that cold, he felt something ancient, something unbroken. The soldiers stepped into view, armor glinting, weapons raised. The human exhaled slowly, steadying his aim. The storm was about to break again. The tunnel filled with the echo of armored boots. The soldiers moved in a tight formation, their glowing visors cutting through the darkness. Each carried a sleek plasma rifle, humming with deadly power. Their leader's voice rang out, sharp and cold. Surrender the human. Resistance will mean death. The human didn't move. He stood between the elder and the soldiers, gripping the alien rifle he had taken earlier. The weapon was heavier than he liked, its balance strange in his hands, but his instincts adjusted. His soldiers' training from Earth whispered in his mind, measure distance, steady breathing, focus on the target. The elder's frail hand gripped the wall for support. His eyes were fixed on the human's back, his lips moving in silent prayer. The driver crouched near the cab, panic all over his face. We can't fight them, he hissed. There are too many. The human ignored him. His eyes locked on the advancing soldiers. Last warning, the leader called again, raising his rifle. Give him up, now. The human's voice was calm, steady, carrying no fear. You'll have to take me. Silence filled the tunnel for one breath, then chaos erupted. The first blast came from the enemy, a searing bolt of plasma that lit the tunnel in blue light. The human dove to the side, rolling across the damp ground, and fired back. The alien rifle spat green fire, striking one soldier in the chest. Sparks burst as armor shattered, and the soldier fell. The squad immediately returned fire, beams tearing through the tunnel walls, shaking the ground. The driver screamed and ducked inside the cab, covering his head. The elder clung to the wall, eyes wide but refusing to look away. The human moved quickly, faster than the soldiers expected. His reflexes were sharp, his body adapting to the alien weapon as if it belonged in his hands. He darted behind a broken support pillar, plasma bolts scorching the stone around him. He leaned out, firing precise shots. Another soldier collapsed, armor cracking open. Impossible, one shouted. He fights like... But the sentence ended in a scream as a blast struck him down. The leader growled orders. Flank him! Pin him down! The soldiers spread out, trying to trap the human in crossfire. The human saw their movement and sprinted forward instead, surprising them. He swung the rifle like a club, smashing it into one soldier's helmet, then fired point blank into another's chest. Plasma burned through armor, and the tunnel shook with each hit. The air filled with smoke, sparks, and the smell of scorched metal. The elder's voice rose, not in fear now, but in awe. He fights like the old ones, like the first warriors. The human pressed forward, refusing to fall back. He dropped to one knee, firing upward, hitting another soldier square in the head. The visor exploded in a shower of glass and fire. His movements were raw, instinctive, not polished like the Empire's soldiers. But they worked. They worked too well. One soldier charged at him with a blade attached to his rifle. The human blocked with the stock of his weapon, sparks flying as metal clashed. With a twist, he slammed the soldier into the wall, then drove the butt of the rifle into his chest until the armor cracked. But more soldiers poured into the tunnel, their boots thundering like drums of war. The leader raised his rifle again, shouting, "Hold him! The queen wants him alive!" The human's breath grew heavy, sweat mixing with the dirt on his face. He fired again, but the rifle hissed and clicked. The power cell was nearly empty. He threw the weapon aside and grabbed a fallen soldier's blade. It was long, curved, glowing faintly with energy. As the soldiers rushed, he met them head on. The blade cut through armor, sparks exploding with each strike. His movements were wild but powerful, each swing fueled by something deeper than training, something primal. The elder watched, trembling, whispering, "A spark? The spark returns." The driver peeked out from the cab, eyes wide. He's not normal," he muttered. Fear and awe battled in his voice. The human cut through another soldier, then ducked behind cover as plasma bolts scorched past him. The tunnel ceiling cracked, water pouring down in streams. The battle had weakened the structure. Suddenly, an explosion ripped through the side wall. The force threw the human and soldiers alike to the ground. Dust filled the air, choking and blinding. Through the haze, the leader staggered to his feet, blood streaking his visor. He laughed darkly. "You think you've won, human? You don't understand. The queen herself wants you. You cannot escape her reach." The human gritted his teeth, clutching the glowing blade tighter. His body ached, his chest burned from the fight, but his eyes burned brighter. He stepped toward the leader. "Then she'll have to come herself." Before the leader could answer, the weakened ceiling gave way. A roar of collapsing stone and rushing water drowned out every sound. The tunnel shook violently as the walls caved in. Soldiers screamed as they were swallowed by the flood. The human grabbed the elder's arm, pulling him toward the cab. The driver shouted in panic as water surged toward them. With a roar of engines, the cab shot forward just as the tunnel behind collapsed completely, burying the soldiers under tons of rubble. Inside the cab, the driver gasped, his hands shaking as he steered. "They'll send more! They'll never stop!" The elder, soaked and trembling, looked at the human. His eyes shone with something between fear and hope. His voice was low, reverent. "He's right. They won't stop, not until the queen herself stands before you." The human sat back, the glowing blade still in his grip, the coin heavy in his pocket. His jaw tightened. The elder's words echoed in his mind, mixing with the leader's last threat. The queen wanted him alive, and that meant this was only the beginning. The cab rattled as it burst out of the collapsing tunnels and into the ruins of the old district. Towers leaned like broken teeth, smoke rose from cracked streets, and the air smelled of rust and fire. The driver's knuckles were white on the controls, his eyes darting left and right in panic. "They'll find us again," he muttered. "The Empire never leaves survivors." The human kept silent, gripping the glowing blade he had taken from the fallen soldier. His other hand touched the coin in his pocket, the weight of it pressing into his skin like a brand. He felt the elder's gaze on him, quiet, steady, full of something more than fear. The elder finally spoke, his voice low but firm. "There is one place left, a safe house. Old allies hide there, though they may not welcome you at first, but they must see you, they must know." The driver snarled. "Rebels? You want me killed for treason? If the Empire even suspects..." The elder slammed his frail hand on the seat beside him, surprising both men. "If the Empire catches us, you die anyway. At least with the rebels, there is a chance." The driver cursed under his breath, but changed direction, steering the cab deeper into the ruins. Broken roads turned into narrow alleys, and finally into an abandoned market square. The stalls were empty, metal frames rusting, shadows crawling across the cracked tiles. The cab slowed and landed quietly. The elder stepped out first, leaning on his cane. He tapped twice against a fallen pillar, then whispered words in an old tongue. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the ground shifted. A hidden panel slid open, revealing a narrow stairway that led into darkness. The human followed, blade in hand, his senses sharp. The elder gestured for him to enter. "This way, they are below." The stairs creaked under their weight, and the air grew colder. At the bottom, torches flickered along stone walls, casting long shadows. Figures stepped from the dark, armed aliens of different races, their eyes glowing with suspicion. They raised their weapons instantly. One of them, a tall reptilian with scarred scales, pointed his gun at the human. "What have you brought here, old one? A spy? A curse?" The elder raised his hands. "No spy, no curse. Look at him closely. Look at what he carries." The rebels murmured, their eyes falling on the human. Some scoffed, others frowned. The reptilian stepped closer, his sharp eyes narrowing. "He is only a man A weak creature from myths. Humans died long ago. The human said nothing. Instead, he slowly pulled the coin from his pocket and held it up. The faint golden glow filled the chamber. Silence fell instantly. Gasps echoed through the room. Some rebels dropped to their knees, their voices whispering old chants. Others hissed in fear, backing away as if the coin itself would bring death. One rebel, a tall insectoid with torn wings, whispered sharply, "That symbol was destroyed. The Empire erased it from every world. How can it still exist?" The elder's voice carried across the chamber. "Because humanity never truly died. This man carries their spark. He carries their defiance." The room erupted in argument. Some shouted that it was a sign, a call to rise again. Others shouted just as loudly that it was doom, that the Empire would burn them all if they accepted him. The human stood silently as the chaos grew louder. His eyes moved across the faces, faces filled with desperation, anger, fear, and hope. He understood now. To them, he wasn't just a soldier. He was a question, a choice. Finally, the reptilian slammed his rifle butt against the ground, silencing the chamber. His gaze burned into the human. "Do you even know what you are? That coin is rebellion. It is blood. If you hold it, you call death upon us all." The human finally spoke, his voice quiet but firm. "I didn't ask for this. I only tried to help one man. But if the Empire fears a simple act of kindness this much, then maybe they should fear what comes next." The chamber fell silent again. His words hung in the air, heavy and sharp. Before anyone could answer, alarms blared. A red light flashed along the walls, and the sound of engines thundered above. The rebels froze. The driver, who had stayed near the stairs, shouted in panic, "They've found us! The Empire's troops are here!" The elder's face paled. "Too fast. They moved too fast." The rebels scrambled, grabbing weapons and shields. Some turned toward the human with anger. "He brought them here. He is the reason they come." Others defended him, shouting that he was the only hope they had left. The human's hand tightened on the blade. He stepped forward, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Stop fighting each other. They're here for me. Let me face them." The elder's hand shook as he reached for him. "No. If they take you, it's over. You must survive." The ceiling shook as blasts tore through the ruins above. Dust fell, torches flickered, and soldiers' voices echoed down the stairway. The rebels raised their weapons, fear and fury burning in their eyes. The human stood at the center of it all, coin in one hand, blade in the other. His jaw tightened as the footsteps grew closer. This was no longer a choice. It was a war breaking open in front of him. The stairway shook as the Empire's soldiers stormed down, their rifles glowing with deadly light. The hidden chamber filled with shouts as rebels scrambled into positions, some hiding behind stone pillars, others crouching low with old, battered weapons. The human moved to the front, blade in one hand, the coin clenched in the other. His heartbeat thundered, but his face showed calm, the same calm that had carried him through every battle he had fought before. The first soldier appeared in the stairwell, visor glowing, weapon raised. A rebel fired, the shot sparking off the soldier's armor. More soldiers followed, pouring into the chamber like a flood. Plasma bolts lit up the air, searing past the rebels' heads. The room shook with the force of battle. The human lunged forward, swinging his glowing blade. It cut through one soldier's weapon, shattering it into sparks, then sliced across the soldier's chest, sending him crashing to the floor. Another soldier tried to flank him, but the human moved faster, thrusting the blade upward in a single brutal strike. The rebels fought fiercely, though their weapons were old and weak. Two of them fell quickly, their bodies smoking from plasma fire. The driver screamed in panic, crawling behind overturned crates. The elder stayed against the wall, chanting words in a language no one else understood, his voice steady despite the chaos. The human's blade cut and struck, his movements sharp and relentless. But the Empire's forces kept coming. Their leader entered at last, tall and clad in heavy black armor, a red insignia glowing across his chest. His voice boomed through the chamber. "Alive! The Queen demands him alive!" Soldiers surged forward together, focusing their fire on the human. Bolts exploded around him, forcing him back. He blocked one strike, spun, and cut through another soldier, but there were too many. A plasma blast struck his side, burning his coat. He staggered but didn't fall, his grip tightening on the blade. The rebels saw his struggle and rallied. A winged alien leapt into the air, firing down at the soldiers. A reptilian rebel charged with a spear, piercing one soldier's armor before being thrown aside. Their cries echoed, brave but desperate. The leader raised his hand, and nets of crackling energy shot out from his gauntlet. One tangled around the human, pulling him to his knees. He slashed with his blade, cutting free, but another net followed, then another. He tore through them, his movements wild, but the soldiers pressed harder. The elder cried out, stepping forward despite his frail body. Do not let them take him. If they take him, we are all lost. The soldiers shoved him aside, their eyes fixed on their target. 3 of them charged together, slamming the human into the wall. His blade clattered to the floor. They struck him with electrified batons, each blow sending fire through his body. He fought back with his fists, breaking one soldier's visor with a brutal punch, but more piled onto him. The rebels tried to push forward, but the leader fired a massive blast that threw half of them to the ground. Smoke and dust filled the chamber, screams echoing. The driver covered his ears and wept, too terrified to move. The elder crawled across the floor, reaching the human. His voice shook with desperation. Do not give them the coin! Do not give them your spark! The human, barely able to move under the weight of the soldiers, clenched the coin tighter in his fist. His vision blurred. Pain coursed through him, but his jaw locked in defiance. He spat blood onto the ground and glared at the leader. You'll never have it. The leader's visor glowed red as he leaned closer. His voice was low, cruel. You think you can choose, human? The queen already owns you. You belong to her. With a signal, the soldiers struck him again, their batons crackling. Darkness began to close in at the edges of his sight. He heard the rebels shouting, the elder crying, the sound of weapons and explosions blurring together. Then, cold metal cuffs snapped onto his wrists, chains glowing with blue energy. His body felt heavy, powerless. The soldiers dragged him toward the stairway, their boots echoing like drums of victory. The elder screamed, forcing himself to stand. No! He is ours! He is hope itself! But 2 soldiers shoved him back to the ground, his voice breaking into sobs. The rebels, broken and bleeding, could only watch as their would-be savior was dragged away. Some shouted curses, others wept in silence. The chamber, once alive with the fire of resistance, now smelled of blood, smoke, and defeat. The leader turned one last time, his visor flashing red. The queen will decide his fate. His spark will be extinguished in her hands. The human's eyes met the elder's as he was pulled up the stairs. For a brief moment, he tried to give a look of defiance, of strength, as if to say he had not given up. But the chains glowed brighter, and his body slumped. The soldiers carried him into the night above, where a waiting dropship roared with light. The rebels collapsed around the elder, their faces pale, their spirits shaken. The driver whispered in horror, "It's over. The Empire has him now." The elder shook his head, tears in his eyes but fire in his voice. "No, not over. The spark cannot be killed so easily. Even in chains, he will burn." Far above, the dropship rose into the sky, carrying the human toward the queen herself. The dropship soared through the night sky, its engines growling like thunder. Inside, the human sat chained, his wrists bound by glowing cuffs that drained his strength. 2 soldiers stood on either side of him, rifles aimed, their faces hidden behind black visors. Across from him, the leader sat silently, helmet gleaming in the dim light. The human's body ached, burns and bruises marking his skin, but his eyes remained steady. His hand twitched slightly against the cuffs, still feeling the shape of the coin hidden in his grip. They had searched him, beaten him, but somehow he had kept it hidden. The spark was still with him. The dropship descended into a massive fortress that towered above the city. Spires of black stone rose high into the clouds, lit with red lights like burning eyes. At the heart of it all sat the throne chamber of the queen. The human was dragged through the gates, past endless lines of armored guards, and thrown to the floor before her throne. The queen rose slowly, her towering form draped in silver and crimson robes. Her crown glowed faintly, and her eyes shone like molten fire. She looked down at him with cold amusement. "So this is the human who stirs my empire," she said, her voice echoing across the hall. "Fragile, broken, yet my soldiers bled to catch him." The guards forced him to his knees, chains biting into his wrists. The queen stepped closer, studying him as if he were some strange relic. Her hand reached out, fingers brushing his chin, lifting his face. "Your kind was erased long ago. Yet here you stand, carrying what should not exist. The human glared at her. If my kind was erased, why are you so afraid of me? The hall went silent. Whispers rippled through the guards. The queen's eyes narrowed, and for the first time her composure cracked. She raised her hand, and a soldier brought forth the blade he had carried, placing it at her feet. She looked down at it, then back at him. You carry defiance in your blood, she said softly. This is the same defiance that once threatened my rule. I should kill you now, but I see value in making you bow before me. Alive, you will remind the galaxy that even the proud humans kneel to their queen. The human laughed bitterly, blood on his lips. You'll never see me bow. The queen's smile was sharp. She leaned close, whispering so only he could hear. If you live, everything I built will fall. That is why you will never be free. She raised her hand to give the order for execution. But before the words left her lips, a blast shook the hall. The massive doors burst open, fire and smoke pouring in. Rebel fighters stormed inside, weapons blazing. At the front was the Elder, his frail frame supported by two rebels, his eyes burning with defiance. Now, the Elder shouted, protect the spark! Chaos erupted. Plasma fire filled the chamber. Guards rushed to block the rebels, blades and guns clashing in a storm of sound. The queen roared in fury, her voice shaking the stone walls. The human struggled against his chains, the coin still pressed against his palm. He forced every ounce of strength into his grip. The cuffs glowed brighter, cracking under pressure. With a sharp snap, the chains broke, shattering in sparks. He stood, grabbing the fallen blade at his feet. The queen's eyes widened in fury. Impossible! The human charged into the fight, his blade striking through the guards. Each movement was raw, wild, but unstoppable. Rebels cheered at the sight of him fighting beside them. For the first time, they saw not just a man, but a symbol rising before their eyes. The queen herself drew a massive weapon, a staff glowing with dark energy. She struck at him, each blow shaking the ground. He blocked with the glowing blade, sparks flying as steel met energy. The hall shook with their battle, rebels and guards clashing all around. The Elder cried out, raising his voice above the chaos. Look, humanity stands again. The spark lives. The guards faltered, some freezing, their faith cracking. The rebels roared louder, pressing forward. Citizens watching from the broken gates began to cheer, their voices rising above the sound of war. The queen struck again, driving him back. But the human gritted his teeth, raising the coin high in his hand. Its golden light burst across the hall, brighter than fire, brighter than the queen's power. The soldiers froze, blinded, their weapons trembling in their hands. The queen screamed, fury twisting her face. No, that symbol cannot exist. She swung her staff in a desperate strike, but the human dodged and drove his blade deep into the ground. The shockwave cracked the stone floor, sending energy rippling through the hall. The queen staggered, her staff breaking apart. The rebels seized the moment, overwhelming the guards. The hall filled with the sound of victory cries. The queen, defeated, stumbled back, her crown shattered. For the first time, she looked afraid. The human stood tall, coin in one hand, blade in the other. His voice carried across the hall, strong and steady. You tried to erase us. You tried to bury our name, but humanity cannot be destroyed. We are the spark, and the spark will burn. The rebels roared in unison, their voices shaking the walls. The queen fled through a hidden passage, her empire crumbling as her soldiers lost their will. As the dust settled, the Elder approached the human, his eyes filled with tears. You only paid for my ride, but you gave us freedom. The human looked around at the rebels, at the citizens rising to their feet, at the hall once ruled by fear, now echoing with hope. He closed his hand around the coin, its glow warm against his skin. For the first time, he understood. He was no longer just one man. He was the beginning of something greater. Humanity was not gone. It had just returned.